your attendance. I'd like to thank EasyCare for sponsoring this webinar tonight. The world is quickly evolving. High-tech materials are stronger, lighter, and absorb concussion better than ever. At EasyCare, it's all about horses and their human partners. In the last 3 years, Easy Boots have been used to complete more than 100,000 wilderness miles in competitions over rough terrain and in foul weather conditions. EasyCare products are often seen in the winner's circle at these demanding endurance events across the country. Their products dominate in this category, proving that horse boots are not a fashion accessory or a toy. They are an essential piece of equipment for any horse owner. And you can learn more about these products at easycareinc.com.
So my name is Daisy Bicking, and tonight I'm going to talk with you about using hoof boots in your farrier practice. For those of you who don't know me, I have been a farrier for the past 10 years based in southeastern Pennsylvania. The focus of my work is on rehabilitation of the equine foot using barefoot and composite materials, composite shoes, hoof casts, and hoof boots. I travel all over the country helping horses with a team of 3 other hoof care providers. I also teach hoof workshops based on seeing the hoof in 3 dimensions and identifying hoof capsule distortion through the Daisy Haven Farm School of Integrative Hoof Care. I have won awards for my work on laminitis and been a speaker at the International Hoof Care Summit. I have used hoof boots for our clients since 2005, and I am also a member of the American Association of Professional Farriers, the Equine Lameness Prevention Organization, and a 2013 member of Team Easy Boot. So quite simply, hoof boots are a removable device which is applied to the horse's foot. Many times, hoof boots are beneficial for our horses for protection, support, traction, treatment, and even as a spare tire if your horse would lose a shoe. Really not so different from what you might expect to use out of your shoes. In my experience, hoof boots fall into the category of support devices. Like shoes, whether they are plastic or metal, it's a matter of the best tool for the job and understanding the impact on the foot and the horse. So hoof boots fall into 2 main categories: performance use and rehabilitation use. For performance use, hoof boots are an excellent choice when the horse is sound barefoot, but the job requires temporary protection, support, or traction. Hoof boots are suitable for all sorts of disciplines. Some you might expect, like endurance, trail. Hoof boots are even great for eventing. In parade, hoof boots are quite suitable for the dressage horse. This is Shannon Peters riding her horse, Disco Inferno. This horse needs little introduction. Team USA Olympic dressage horse Ravel. In fact, most of the advanced performance horses that Stefan and Shannon Peters are riding and training are currently barefoot and use boots when needed. Hoof boots are also great for horses that jump. Law enforcement horses do quite well in hoof boots, and carriage horses too. While in New York City last summer, I absorbed several carriage horses in boots. Hoof boots are also an excellent choice therapeutically for rehabilitation situations. They offer temporary protection, treatment of hoof ailments like injury, white line disease, abscess, thrush. With the pad choices available for hoof boots, navicular syndrome, navicular disease, caudal heel pain, even laminitic and foundered horses will benefit greatly from hoof boots, offering support and protection as needed. In helping the horse owner with the best boot selection, the right boot is the one that is suited to the horse's job and fits the foot best. When considering boot fitting and selection, think about what kind of job is the horse doing: pleasure riding, performance, or therapeutic purpose. Keep in mind that a boot used for riding can't always be used with a therapeutic application. So a boot that fits for everyday riding will probably not also accommodate something like an abscess wrap. The shape of the foot, the trim style, the trim interval, all impact boot selection. It's important to note that hoof boots are made for a natural style trim. A shorter trim interval will also help keep your boots fitting well. So for example, if your client wants you to come every 8 weeks, the chances of your boot fitting the same at the beginning of your trim cycle to the end are slim. So a shorter trim interval will help you keep your boots fitting well. Consider empowering your horse owner so they can help you maintain the trim in between your visits, if necessary. We have a lot of success with that with our clients. Different shaped feet fit different brands and styles of boots. So a narrower foot, like the foot on top, versus a wider foot, like the foot on the bottom, are going to fit different types of boots. Different brands of boots are made for narrower versus wider feet, although some brands do come in narrow and wide styles. Note that hind feet typically require a narrow boot. Each manufacturer has their own sizing guides based on width and length measurements. Typically, you'll measure from the buttress line, which is the widest part of the frog, the back of the heels, to the toe line at the end of the foot. That will be your length measurement. Your width measurement is going to go from quarter to quarter across the widest part of the foot, typically Duckett's bridge. Many boot manufacturers offer a fit kit to help facilitate correct sizing. The fit kit will contain sample versions of the boots, so you do not have to have the boots necessarily on hand. You can still ensure you're ordering the correct size for your client. Remember that some boots can be modified to facilitate a good fit on a less than perfect foot. Shims can be added on a distorted foot for a big flare in your quarter, a dish at the toe. You can use glue, wool, or felt as an effective shim. In our practice, however, we don't find we have to shim boots very often. Also keep in mind that adding pads to boots will alter the fit, so try to plan ahead. If you need to add a pad to the boot, take that into account with your recommendation for the client. And don't forget that many boots can also be easily glued on for longer-term performance use. Pads in boots are a great addition for therapeutic purposes. Pads will provide comfort for the horse, and there are many different materials to choose from. Lots of options of closed cell foam, gel, and wool. I've even used a cut-up washcloth when I was in a sticky situation. Easy Care makes a comfort pad system which has different densities of foam that can be mixed and matched with options with raised frog pads for support and comfort for the horse. Also, Soft Ride makes their gel pads with different densities, which also a different variety of comfort combinations. Many products that can be used in shoes can also be used in boots. Dental impression material and VetTech pour-in pads offer support. Magic Cushion is anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial hoof packing, can also be easily used. Something like VetTech Equipack CS would offer both support and antimicrobial benefits. Don't be afraid to be creative for your horse's needs. Many different things can be added to boots to enhance their use, fit, and durability. For example, many boots come standard with gaiters already installed. However, in some boots it's optional. Gaiters will help protect pasterns and heel bulbs, and in some boots enhance boot retention. Additionally, we've had some clients that have added fleece lining on their gaiter. It's rarely necessary. Studs are a great addition to the hoof boot when needed. Eventing, jumping, extreme trail conditions, wet grass at times. Traction studs are very easy to install. Boots can be shimmed, as I mentioned earlier. Also, you can use a heat gun on some of the boots to help with fitting distorted feet. Mueller's tape is a tape which gets sticky when it's warm. That can be wrapped around the foot, and it can be beneficial for boot retention in some performance riding situations. Easy Care also offers a power strap for some of their boots, which will enhance fit on certain feet. So there are lots of options, and feel free to explore what's available. People have gotten pretty creative. Regarding carrying boots in your truck, my approach to ensure a correct fit and meet my clients' needs is to carry a variety of sizes and styles in my truck. Think about evaluating the demographic of your clientele. Evaluate what type of boot do you think your clients are most likely to need? Performance, rehabilitation, protection, traction, support, a treatment boot, or a boot as a spare tire? At our facility, my focus is on rehabilitation, where my other team members are more focused on performance. So we carry a variety of all the different styles of boots to meet our clients' needs. Try to carry at least the most common range of sizes, and keep in mind that some boots are sold as pairs while others are sold individually. If you have clients with mismatched feet, it can be advantageous to carry boots that are sold individually as opposed to pairs. Whatever style you choose to carry, storing boots in your truck can be really easy, even if you don't have a lot of space. Totes are convenient. You can store them loose in your totes or in the boxes. Drawer systems work very well. And keep in mind those fit kits are awfully convenient if you cannot store a lot of boots. We often look ahead at our schedule, so we know ahead of time if we'll need all of our boot choices or just a few select boots. And it's easy to grab a tote and throw it in the truck as needed. My clients appreciate when I can hand them boots immediately and they don't have to wait. You'll definitely sell the most boots if you carry the boots in your truck. It's easiest to fill your client's needs if you have the boots on hand. If you're pulling shoes, if you have a foot abscess, you have an immediate need potentially for that boot. For therapeutic purposes, it can be the key to success. Your client is going to be much happier if you can pull the boot that you need out of your truck instead of having to order it and have it shipped. And of course, carrying accessories is also a good idea. Easy Care offers a fill your truck program to help Farriers inventory boots. That's fantastic. It offers a flexible payment program. I definitely recommend that you look into that if you're interested in inventorying boots. Upkeep, repairs, and failures. Most boot failures are due to improper fit or application. Make sure to look over new boots and tighten fittings before the client uses the boot on that first ride. I try to get into the habit of that as soon as I take the boot out of the box and say, yes, this is the right size for you. I go over the entire boot to make sure it's all set for them. Occasionally boots can get damaged, so spare parts are typically available. You don't have to necessarily replace the entire boot. Be sure to review correct application with your owners. Before I leave the barn, I ensure that my owners can apply their boots successfully unassisted. There is nothing worse than a call from a frustrated owner. I always recommend to my clients to allow a break-in period for a horse with a new pair of boots. I've had owners take their horses out on long trail rides with a brand new pair of boots and end up with boot rubs that are undesirable, to say the least. I always recommend that it's better to try some shorter rides first and then allow the horse to become more accustomed to the boots before trying that long ride. Also, therapeutic boots are typically left on for longer periods of time without removal. So consider adding Gold Bond powder to these boots to prevent moisture getting trapped inside. This may be more of a concern for those of you in a wet climate like here in the Northeast than in drier climates elsewhere. Please advise your owners to clean and maintain their boots after use. Rinse off muddy boots, check screws and fittings. It helps prevent boot failure when the boots are on the horse. There are many, many educational resources available to help you with figuring out which boot, what boots, and when to boot. The manufacturers do a great job at supporting us, their farriers, and the owners by phone, by email, and at trade shows like the International Hoof Care Summit. You can definitely learn about boots there. Social media is a fantastic way to learn about boots through Facebook, social networking, hoof blogs. I write a fantastic blog for Easy Care called Hoof Love Not War. I have a blast writing it, and I would love to share it with you. You can also learn about hoof boots through YouTube. Lots of videos. You can learn everything you want to learn on YouTube, and lots of information about hoof boots is also there. You can learn about hoof boots through seminars. For example, on June 10th, we're offering an advanced booting clinic with Philip Himanka, who's a fantastic endurance ride leader, who's going to teach us some advanced booting techniques. And certainly can learn about hoof boots from other farriers who boot. Everybody likes to share tips and tricks about what they're doing and what they find works the best. I enjoy being able to offer hoof boots to my clients to facilitate their success with their horses. It's another tool to be able to offer them in their arsenal of resources. Sometimes it's the owner's preference. They want their horse barefoot, and offering them hoof boots is a great way to support them in that process. Certainly, sometimes cost is a factor. If you have a client's horse who has a hard foot to nail to, or a foot that isn't going to hold a shoe very well, then being able to offer them a hoof boot as opposed to an expensive glue-on application, if it's outside of their budget, is a great tool. Also, hoof boots can potentially be less work for the farrier, meaning if you have a client who is at great distance from the bulk of your practice, and it's hard for you to support a client if they lose a shoe or have a need otherwise at that distance, you may be able to work with them with hoof boots instead and retain the client. And really, for me, hoof boots allows us to keep our clients' horses barefoot more successfully, given the variety of factors influencing the health of the foot. I'd like to thank the American Farriers Journal for asking me to present this webinar, and Easy Care for sponsoring the webinar and providing many of the photos included here. And thank you for everyone who took their time to attend tonight.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Daisy. Great job. And just let everybody know, if you take a look to the GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a tab for questions. We have a lot of great questions already, but we still have time. Feel free to type some in. Take advantage of the situation, be able to pick Daisy's brain. Okay. Daisy, let's start with this one, talking about pad material. Do you have a preferred pad material for trail riders?
Yeah, typically my go-to pad for a trail boot would be one of the Easy Care pads. Typically they're 6mm or 12mm pad depending on the boot. For example, an Easy Boot glove or something like that is going to accommodate a 6mm pad, where something like a Trail or an Old Mac G2 will accommodate a 12mm pad. But that material is nice, they're inexpensive, and easy to install in the boot.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for booting the rare oblong front foot, like, say, a Morgan?
Well, I think it's important to check your trim style and make sure that you're not trimming inadvertently to distortion, but the longer, narrower style of boots tend to be, um, in my experience, more like the easy boot. Glove, that style of boot is a little narrower and longer. It also comes in a wide, but the regular version. The boa tends to be a little longer and narrower. Those are the top two that come to mind at the moment.
Okay. I have a two-part
But
question. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that I would still definitely check your trim and just make sure that your toe isn't migrated forward, um, with that question. Look at the measurement charts for the hoof boots, and that'll give you the best information.
Okay. Um, this is a two-part question. I'll ask the first part. Um, which boot do you prefer for long-term or rehabilitative cases if other alternative materials are not an option?
Honestly, it depends on the problem. Um, sometimes different boots are going to be more appropriate based on the type of rehabilitative issue.
Okay, the second part to that, and you addressed it a little bit about client management, but what
Mhm.
about the long-term cases, maybe where you're using it more for a therapeutic use? Do you have any changes to how you work with the client on that?
Sure, yeah. The client being able to maintain the viability of the boot and the horse in the boot over that period of time is really important. So it's important to coach them on uh, cleaning the boot in our northeast humid environment. I always try to get the horse out of the boots for a short period of time, at least each day, say in a dry, clean stall to let their feet breathe, let the boots dry out a little bit. Our feet can sweat if in a therapeutic boot for long term. That's why the Gold Bond powder is nice. But they're going to have to check those boots every day, take them off, check the feet, clean them out, put the boots back on. And if they can't commit to doing that, then it's probably not advisable to leave the owner with those boots for that horse.
Okay. Okay, this farrier's seen problems with owners leaving the boots on 24/7. How do you bring that to an owner's attention and help them find the proper fit or maybe the brand for their horse?
Well, my experience is that a horse that is in a boot 24/7 may need another solution at the end of the day, which is why we also put shoes on horses and use hoof casts and things like that. If the horse needs to be in the boot 24/7 and the farrier doesn't feel that the horse's foot is doing well in that boot, then I would address issues of moisture, excess moisture. Maybe the Gold Bond would help. I would address issues of maybe getting the horse out of the boots for a period of time and trying to keep the boots as clean and dry as possible. Maybe having two pairs of boots to switch different boots or um, give options, for the owner so that they'll use two pairs instead of one pair, or depending on what the concern is, there's a couple different ways you could address that.
Okay. What are your thoughts about breakover in terms of using boots? What consideration do you give to breakover?
That's a really good question. I think it's important to factor in all of those ideas when choosing boots. A lot of the boots now have a nice roll in the front of the boot, but there's no doubt to me that it does, to some degree, move the breakover forward when you apply something to the outside of the foot as opposed to on the bottom of the foot or nothing at all. Um, so I think it has to be weighed as part of your value decision as to what boot, if to boot, and what are the pros and cons for that horse. Um, in terms of a boot you're going to use for performance, the horse is barefoot most of the time. You put the boot on and the horse goes down the trail. I don't feel that it's a huge influencing factor. Because most of the times you're working that horse for a shorter period of time than if they have the boot off and they don't have that additional influence onto their body and foot. But it's definitely something to weigh in the pros and cons.
Okay. Okay, someone's looking for a recommendation for a boot style for a draft cross who's typically fits into a size 5 epic that's used for fox hunting. This horse has a traditional farrier and a longer trim cycle.
That's a good question. I'm assuming that the epics aren't working. Otherwise, they would be using the epics.
Uh, that's If you want to follow up with more information, Jessica, we can probably get into this a little deeper. But yeah, let's wait for Jessica to give us a little bit more information on this horse, and we'll move on to another question.
Great.
Using studs, are these easily placed and removed by the rider?
Well, the traction studs that are um, applied to these boots would be screwed in using a specific tool and typically not removed. Typically, they're screwed in and left there. You probably could remove them if you needed to, but depends. There's a couple different styles of studs. Some, like the quick, easy studs, just screw in really easily. Some actually bolt through the bottom of the boot. I don't think that style you would necessarily want to remove. The quick studs you might be able to take in and out more efficiently, but typically most of my clients, if they want studs, they want studs. They put them in, they leave them in.
Okay. Have you gone 100% boots, or do you still identify any requirements for shoes?
Yeah, we shoe. I am not a farrier who's trained in the application of metal shoes. Um, so the shoeing methods that I use are all composite materials, um, but we use them all equally as part of our practice. So we're not anti-shoe at all. I have a lot of respect for my fellow farriers who apply metal shoes. I think it's just about my specialty, and my focus has been composite materials, and so I have great farriers I can refer if horses that I work on need metal. The predominance of my horses, though, are barefoot and use boots when needed, but I do shoe as needed as well.
Okay. Do you charge a fitting fee?
That's a very good question. Um, my practice is set up that I actually charge by the hour as opposed to by the job. So while I do not charge a fitting fee, my time with the client is charged hourly. So there is a fee built in for the time I spend fitting boots.
Okay. Here's a question from a young farrier who doesn't quite have the clients who are demanding boot use.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty infrequent, but has come across from time to time. Would you say that using a fit kit is the best approach when you're not going to carry a large inventory?
Definitely. The fit kits are a great tool. A lot better than having to measure and guess. The fit kits, you can pull out the shells, put the boot on the horse's foot, make sure that you're happy with that fit. It's going to get you a lot closer than just measuring, although measuring does a good job too. Um, so I would definitely, in your situation, recommend the fit kits.
Okay, let's see here. How large is your work area? And someone wants to know maybe what are some of the areas you're going to go to for seminars this fair year's in Florida.
Well, we offer our recognizing hoof distortion workshops all over the country. We don't always include hoof booting, but that's something we're building in more. So I would recommend that you contact our office and let them know what you're interested in, and we're glad to try to accommodate or refer you to someplace that can help you if we can't.
Okay, when you approach a navicular horse, what are some of the things you take in consideration?
In terms of hoof boots,
Yeah,
let's
in terms
see.
of.
So of a booting selection,
Mm-hmm.
well, I would definitely keep in mind the comfort level of the horse, and I would probably use hoof testers to determine how sensitive the horse is to pressure in the caudal aspect of their foot. I'd want to provide them support, but not so much support that I'm going to make them more sore or uncomfortable. So, depending on the reaction to hoof testers, if they were quite sore and uncomfortable, I would use a softer material, and if they were a little more stoic about the pressure in the back of their foot, then I would use a more firm material to give them more support and stimulation to the back of their foot.
Okay. Let's go back to Jessica's question. She said she's ordered Epics, but no boot has been used at this time.
I think that's one of those things where you'd have to be on hand with the horse and look at the foot and measure and try to help the owner problem solve. I'm not sure I have quite enough information to make a specific recommendation.
Okay. Do you drill through the boot to put in studs?
Depends on the type of studs you're using. The quick studs that Easy Care offers have a tool and they just screw in. There are some other stud options that actually bolt into the boot and you can drill through the boot.
Okay. What is the typical charge for boots, and how long do they typically last?
That's a good question. Hoof boots can run you anywhere from very inexpensive, like the blue equine slipper, which is a therapeutic boot. Very inexpensive. I don't know the exact price of an equine slipper off the top of my head, but I'm thinking something like that that's more for just basic protection. You could get around $20 on up to something that's more heavy duty, more complicated, meant for more heavy duty use. Could be anywhere up to $150 or $200. Is there a second part to that question?
Let's see here. No, just the duration, how long they typically last.
The duration. It depends on the job and it depends on the terrain and how the horse is moving. I have clients that have been using the same pair of hoof boots for 5+ years. In general, I find them to be quite durable and that you don't have to replace them very often if you take care of them.
Okay, we'll go through a couple more questions here. I see a lot of the questions we have here are maybe what boots for a specific breed or a specific situation. So, Daisy, how about a statement that'll universally cover any horse about how you would go about finding the right boot or the right fit?
Sure. If your hoof care provider does not necessarily boot, you could ask them to help you with that selection. Research it together, or you can go onto one of those resources online, download information on each boot, or contact a lot of the boot manufacturers have listings of their boot dealers. You could contact a dealer that's in your general area for assistance, as well as doing some measurements and some tracings. You can probably get a pretty good idea of what might suit for you in just doing that research online or making a phone call to the manufacturer.
Okay. Let's say you apply boots and maybe it doesn't quite work out for the client. Do you buy them back, or how do you deal with making things right for the client who's not happy with the boots?
That's a really good question. I do personally support my clients heavily with their boots if I'm involved in the process of fitting and selling them. If they make a boot selection on their own without me assisting them, then I might be a little less willing to take boots from them, even if I could potentially resell them. So for my clients, if I sell them boots and they're not happy with them, then I'm going to at least buy them back at a discount. If they've used them heavily, I'm going to try to help them out. If, on the other hand, they use them once, they're basically brand new, they were slipping around, then I'm going to give them a full credit and try to help them find another option.
Okay. And what kind of tool do you use for drilling the studs in?
If you have to drill them in, you could just use a Dremel. Is easy.
Right. Okay, and the last question here. When you're using a packing material like Magic Cushion with a hoof boot but no pad, how do you apply it without ruining the boot, or how do you clean the Magic Cushion off out of the boot?
That's a good question too. What I would do is I would pack my Magic Cushion in the foot, making sure that it don't fill it so full so it's going to squidge out around the bottom of the foot or up onto the heel bulbs because Magic Cushion can irritate above the hairline. And I would apply a piece of wax paper and a very light wrap, if possible, to the foot to hold that all in place and then put it in the boot.